let's take a look at one of the wheels. Okay, so we need a right angle turn on that, so one of these guys ought to be able to, one, pull that off, two, pull that off. Oh, no. Let's try that. There we go. And that should maybe work for us, huh? Let's try that. Yep, that works. Okay, so we take the motor and we get the speed reducer. Speed reducer. And then I want to play with this guy. Okay, so what we have to do here is in the bottom would turn this one. So in here turns this piece here back and forth, and it'll either turn this one or this one depending on which side we choose to connect to. So what I want to try to do is go there with this one, or one of these guys. So where did, there we go. One of these guys on there. Alright, and so now we put one of the green ones on there to demo that. And we should theoretically be able to alternate between them. So that's it's hooked up to the battery, so we should be able to okay, so now we've got one of these guys, and we do one of these. And then you can kind of see if I can get this lined up here, where we have a tooth in the center of the gear and places for that tooth on that screw. There you go. And so we okay, and I took the liberty of doing the other one already for the sake of time. And now, fun! I'm trying to do this while keeping it in the frame. Ta-da! You got a simple little chain drive. Now, you hook this up. And away we go. Ready? Excellent. And that leaves a couple things left to play with. Maybe using the winch, we could do something like why am I doing that manually when I can wind and unwind it using this? Ta-da! And that just leaves this guy. Oh, where's my, there. And this would be a pump for pumping water. As a kind of a summary of things after the experimentation with Capsela, I would say it's kind of a cool toy to have around. I love the gears and mechanisms as a means to understanding mechanical actions and how things move. Along those lines, I would say the thing I would like to see more of is things like a rack and pinion, or cams and camshafts, those types of things where you can get other types of motion, sort of reciprocating motion, changing up mechanisms so that you can then maybe get a closing. I can understand where like certain type of mechanisms would require not being able to encapsulate them in those closed containers. And those closed bubbles are what make it possible for kids to be able to play with these kits without getting hair or other things caught in the gears. But they also, you know, some of the devices you can use with those are for flotation, and it's the kind of thing where it's meant to, at least to some degree, make boats that can move on water. I do think for a greater range of exploring mechanical motions, there are some other mechanisms that could be made for these sets. But as they are, they're a kind of a neat thing to play with and tinker around with, getting kind of a working through the mental process of how to mechanically move things from one place to the other. Now, ideas that inspires? Well, to be perfectly honest, I would have to say it makes me want to break out a 3D printer and start seeing what I can attach to it. Because, I mean, if there's nothing else I do with something like that, I could do a lot of things with just the gearing mechanisms on there. The clutch setup, being able to attach a piece that would rotate when set up one way and then hit a button and have it switch over to a different setup. Being able to pump air and possibly water with that pump might be interesting. There are ways that I can think of using it as a simple prototyping system for proof of concept works, so that if I wanted to build like an ice cube dispenser, those could be the things by which I drove the auger, just by making attachments that would connect onto them. So I don't have to get a whole different setup, and then I can just disconnect that, and when I'm ready I can build a dedicated motor system for that. But I can put together that system and figure out how fast a gearing system I need. I could also do something along the lines of prototyping small walking robots, where you can experiment with gearing ratios for one set of legs versus another set of legs, so that it can get a different type of stride in. I could even see maybe experimenting with seeing if you can get flapping wings to move in a given way with just one motor, to cut down on weight, so you can do small, and you're demonstrating the actual flapping motion, and then getting to a point where you can then use small motors from like a vibration motor from a cell phone, with the counterweight removed from the end of it, use that small motor to drive a tiny gearing system of watch gears or something like that, geared to make a flapping that then would enable you to do that, but doing the proof of concept with the Capsela, to get the motion right, the timing of the wing flap versus the rotation and the pitch adjustment. I can see doing things like that. I can see it as sort of a modular system for gearing, like the vacuum pump might be something you could do to, if you got a clog in your sink and you run a line from the pump and rebuild a pump set up with a heavier load capability or a faster running, and pump all the excess water out of one side of the sink into a bucket, so that you can then work on fixing the drain rather than digging through all the water at the bottom. That's a possibility. You could use the small winch with the hook on the end to go down into a small container and fish out something that's down at the bottom of it. Recapture your keys if you drop them down the back of the couch. All sorts of little, assembling mechanical devices that are temporary one use, but you've got the parts to make multiple devices. I don't imagine it's got enough power behind it to really do anything like a small reciprocating saw on anything bigger than styrofoam or balsa wood, and maybe not even then. But it would be an interesting way to build a prototype. I think the first thing I'd probably build for it is a setup where you could do a hand crank for some of the gearing system, and then you could build hand cranked or human powered devices as a basic model, which you can then build a later model that you could treadle power or hook up to a bicycle or something, doing a larger scale. So I do think it has potential for helping people figure out and prototype mechanisms. And I do think it's a smart toy to get for kids to learn how to build mechanical devices and how gearing systems work. I think there are plenty of adults who have very little understanding of how some of that works and the potential benefits of that kind of thing. I'd be curious to see if you could do the wheels off-center so that you could get some eccentric gearing and wheel-based designs. I know there are ways you can make a square wheel roll on arched pathways, and as a simple means of cobbling together something that will demonstrate some of those principles, or for science fair projects or those types of things. I think it's a neat toy, and I think more kids should have access to that kind of thing. Alright, well, that's it for this time, and next time we've got another book coming down the pipe. I'll see you in a week. Hope you were inspired by something. See you next time.